So here is the sewing machine I'm going to teach you on. Lots of these little domestic sewing machines are fairly similar to each other. They are, this is a really good machine to learn on. This machine, even though it says John Lewis on the front, they're actually made by Genome, which is an excellent Japanese make of sewing machines. I've been using these machines to teach on for as long as I've been teaching. There's obviously lots of different brands, and they will all behave fairly similarly. Some are obviously better than others, but that's not within the scope of this class to discuss really. This is a mechanical machine, which means that all the buttons will, you know, if I change the stitch length or the stitch width, it will do so mechanically, and it will do it on the next stitch. And when I stop and start the machine, it will stop and start wherever the needle happens to be. It's not a computerized machine. Computerized machines are, you know, often have more stitch patterns, but I do also believe that they are a little bit more fragile, and they can be a little bit easier to break. They can also be a bit more complex. So I prefer teaching on these mechanical machines because they're just a little bit sturdier and a little bit easier to understand also. So just want to run through what all the different bits of the machine are. So what we have on the top of the machine here are the spool pins. That's where your thread goes. This machine has two of them. That's for if you want to stitch with two threads at the same time. We're not going to cover that at all. It's quite advanced. It doesn't matter which one of these two spool pins you pick. I would say whatever one you're not using, push down. And if you're not using either of them and you put the machine away, definitely keep these pushed down, because they're plastic and they're not very strong. And once they're broken, well, once they're both broken, you need to start investing in an external thread stand. So look after these. They are quite fragile. On some machines, these are metal, which is great. It's a lot sturdier, but these ones are plastic. So like I said, this is where your thread goes. So let's put our thread on there. There you go. I'm going for a nice contrasting colour here, so that we can see the thread as it goes through the machine, which is great as a beginner. Then what else do we have here? This is the bobbin winding mechanism. We'll cover that later on. This is a little catch for putting your thread in when you're winding up the bobbin. These are different thread catchers and different hooks for threading up your machine. This is the tension dial. We will go over that when we talk about tension a little bit later on. And then we have here two big buttons. On some machines you'll just have one. So this one is the stitch selector. So it will have numbers on here that correspond with the pictures on the side here. So A is a straight stitch with the needle in the middle, etc, etc. So D will see us do a zigzag in 3 steps. And you can see as soon as I move the dial that the needle moves. So definitely when you are changing the stitch selector, using the stitch selector button, make sure your needle is up. Okay, so this is a selector button. On this machine you have a separate stitch length selector, so you can change every single one of the stitches you want to use to have no stitch length at all, so that's stitching on 0 in place. Be very mindful that that very quickly creates a great big lump that your machine won't be able to get past. Between 0 and 1 is this symbol here is for the buttonhole. We're not going to cover buttonholes in this class, but it's kind of basically telling you that don't use a stitch that short unless you are creating buttonholes, which isn't 100% true, because sometimes you do just want to stitch a very short stitch, but not usually. So every single one of these stitches can be adjusted. Generally speaking, a normal straight stitch when you're stitching bits of fabric together, it will be on 2.5. So if you have a computerized machine and you select a straight stitch, it will automatically jump to 2.5. Okay, so for a zigzag or for any of the other stitches, you can use whatever length you want. You might just find that 1 is perfect for your needs, or 4, but like I said, on a straight stitch, which is the stitch you'll be using 99% of the time, 2.5 is your desired stitch length. If you create a really long stitch, your fabric will automatically start gathering a little bit, and you'll also find that it's not good for securing bits of fabric together, because the places where it connects the two bits of fabric together are quite far apart. So that's not, it could be good for a temporary stitch or for gathering, but otherwise you wouldn't use a straight stitch that long. Okay, so these are the buttons. On some machines you'll have a third button where you can adjust the width of every single stitch. This would also mean if you have your machine on a straight stitch, if you have the selector button on a straight stitch and adjust the width with that button, that your needle will move to the left or to the right of its normal central position, which can be very useful because you can often use the foot to measure things with. So you would have your, maybe the edge of your foot going alongside an edge or a hem or the edge of a pocket, and you can adjust your stitch to sit closer to that edge or further away from that edge, and every other stitch can be adjusted widthwise as well. This machine doesn't have that. They do an option with that on it. It was considerably more expensive, and I didn't feel it was that important for a beginner's sewing machine. The one stitch that you can adjust the width of on this machine, and that's not uncommon at all, is the zigzag. So if you move it to the B setting, you'll have a straight stitch with the setting with the needle on the left, and you can adjust the width in little steps. So that is the widest zigzag it will do. So that means that the needle swings all the way from left to right inside the foot there, and this will be a narrow zigzag. But all the others, the width is preset, and that's good enough, to be honest. It doesn't really matter too much. I will talk about what all the stitches do a bit later on in the class. I just wanted to introduce you to the different buttons. The final button we have here is the reverse button. On this machine you need to press that all the way down and keep it held down because it's a mechanical machine. It doesn't remember. As soon as you let go of that, it will start stitching forwards again. Some machines have their reverse buttons here or there. On older machines you might have a button that you press in, but all machines, apart from if they're made before 1920, will have a reverse button somewhere on the machine.